Hi, my name is Robin, and I'm a volunteer at A Brighter Way.
And I'm Adam, the Executive Director of A Brighter Way.
And welcome to Conversations About A Brighter Way, where we talk about what it's like for those individuals who've had experience with the criminal justice system.
Call it home, people don't answer, people don't support. They support you when you're there, but when you're gone, they forget about who you was, like you vanished.
Family members, friends, mentors, mentees, mental health professionals, and employees all play vital roles aiding formerly incarcerated people transitioning back into society.
For me, it's turning off the fix-it mode. Patience is really important, and sometimes that's just sitting with somebody, hearing those things that are painful over and over and over again.
The advice I give to any job applicant is to be yourself. I want to get to know you, and I want to hire you and whoever you are. And whatever experiences you've had in the past, you might be able to bring a diverse perspective to our business.
The tagline at A Brighter Way is re-entry through relationships. And in season 2 of our podcast, we delve into those relationships which play a pivotal role in the re-entry process.
Essentially, what we're looking at when you come out of prison is your support group, people, places, and things. If nothing changes, then nothing changes. So if you go back to those same people, that same environment, and doing those same things, you are going to be getting the same outcomes.
Speaking of A Brighter Way, since we have Q with us today and he's employed with A Brighter Way, I'm going to give him the reins to tell you a little bit about A Brighter Way.
Hey y'all, what's up? This is Q. My real name is Laquan Hill. I am affectionately known as Q to family and friends, and I am the program coordinator for A Brighter Way. I am just recently released from formerly being incarcerated for 16 years. I've been home now for 5 months. A Brighter Way, how can I sum this up so y'all can understand? A Brighter Way is an organization that helps the formerly incarcerated navigate through life's ups and downs and challenges of trying to be reacclimated into society. A Brighter Way's motto is re-entry through relationships. Basically, that means that we form relationships with every individual that comes into our office, everybody that we encounter, because we never know how a relationship might blossom or turn into other avenues for different individuals. One of the most important things in A Brighter Way is the mentorship. Now, there's a connotation that comes behind mentor, especially dealing with individuals that's coming out of prison. There's a hierarchy or a better than connotation behind it. So we've been trying to step away from the word and go towards navigate or navigator. You ever think about your GPS? You punch in the coordinates, right? And you tell the GPS where you want to go, where you're trying to go. And the navigation system gives you the direction to get there, right? Might give you multiple options, but ultimately you have to choose which route you want to take. But the key part in the navigation, all it's doing is just assisting. You are ultimately driving the car. So in A Brighter Way, that is what we're doing. We're just assisting individuals on getting to the path. Now, another cornerstone is the wraparound services. We provide wraparound services, which means basically we help you with everything that you can possibly need in order to be successful. I hope that gives you a better understanding of what A Brighter Way is and what it do.
Thank you, Q. And if you remember, Q was part of our season 1, so we are so lucky to have you back. So thank you.
Hey, nice seeing you too.
We also have Jordan in here, and what we're going to be speaking about this week is the mentor-mentee relationship.
Okay.
We have to have him say his whole name too, because every time I meet somebody with a name that somebody else has been famous with, it's easier to remember. So give us your full name.
So for the record, my name is Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan. We have Michael Jordan and Robin Leach this week.
So, Q, can you tell us a little bit about the mentoring program?
Yes. Basically, like I said before, we take individuals in and we try to figure out what their needs are. Mm-hmm. What do they possibly need to be successful. So a client comes in and I have a conversation with them. I get to know them. I listen to their story. I share my story. And then we started to make plans, make goals, and little tasks that they can complete. So they might need ID, they might need social security cards, they might need food assistance, they might need housing, which is one of the biggest issues right now. They might also just need somebody to talk to because they're having issues like I did when I first came home, and I needed somebody to talk to. So I'm there for them. We also help them with employment. We also help them with health care insurance. Even though we might not be able to assist them on certain needs, because we have fostered all these relationships, we have the ability to refer them to someone that can best assist them. So that's what it's about.
Thank you for that.
And I think that's a good transition too, because Mike or Michael, or should I call you Jordan?
No,
I'm not
MJ.
exactly sure.
I mean, anything's appropriate at this point.
23.
No, I'm not calling him 23, man. I'm a Pistons fan. It's already, I never thought I would say Michael Jordan as many times as I did in that short of a duration anyway. So Q gave us a little bit of a layout of what it is as he's in the office and not knowing who's going to come in. So let us know a little bit about what brought you to A Brighter Way and kind of a little bit of what your experience has been since you've been here.
All right, absolutely. So essentially what we're looking at when you come out of prison is your support group. People, places, and things. If nothing changes, then nothing changes. So if you go back to those same people, that same environment, and doing those same things, you are going to be getting the same outcomes. So having said that, I got with A Brighter Way through family members and people who had already been released, who had dealt with the previous organizers. So essentially all I was looking for is somebody that would understand my situation and be able to help me, like he said, navigate through it. Because all the things and all the programs we learn while we're incarcerated are null and void when we release. They put you through all these mandatory pre-release programs. They're like, oh, well, this is going to benefit you when you get out. Every single thing I was taught while I was incarcerated is wrong. It is outdated by at least 5 years. Coming to A Brighter Way, the first step is the people. When you meet the people are there for you. It's that positive support group. Let's face it, a lot of us going through our different lifestyles, whatever our situations were, have dealt with less than savory characters. So when you meet the guys at A Brighter Way, the people rather, and they present you with an alternative to, hey, we are who you were. And look at where we are. So that's that first step that it's like, well, maybe I can be successful. I don't have to deal with the stigma and the rhetoric of being out. You know, you come out, you're in the neighborhood, you see all the guys, oh man, you ain't never it's not gonna be this. All those negative attitudes really put you in a hopelessness type feeling. So the second is places. After having set myself up and been integrated into A Brighter Way, we have done all these different community events and everything. So going to those events, I'm meeting like-minded individuals who are trying to do better, not only for themselves, but for the others around them. The things that we do together when we go out, it's like, all right, so when my first interview and whatever, we came out, Q took me out, we went shopping. So that was a big, that's a big hurdle. You know, you don't have anything. I personally did 17 years. So coming home, I have nothing. And then you're not allowed to acquire anything while you're in prison because you have really no place to put it. So got my things together, got my, personal equipment together, went out and got all my paperwork, which is a big thing now. Your driver's license, social security card, birth certificate, all those things that you really can't acquire while you're in prison, just because nowadays with fraud as high as it is, you can't get these things. Well, we need photo identification. All right, cool. How do I get my photo identification? You need your social security card. Well, how do I get my social security card? You need photo identification. Are you serious? Like, this is the game we're gonna play? All right, fine. So then, like, the struggle that I'm currently facing that the organization has helped me with is moving forward is housing. Housing. You can't stay out of prison if you can't live out of prison. Everybody's willing to give you a job because at that point, you're benefiting them. You're making me money. But in a housing situation, now you're a liability. You don't have any rental history. You don't make 3 times the required amount for rent, which rent right now is what, $1,400 for a 1-bedroom?
Right.
So you want me to make close to $4,000 with no skill set, no education? That's outlandish.
I want to backtrack on something because we're going to cover a lot of ground, but I want to backtrack on something because I think it's my job.
Oh, wow.
I think it was extremely important because I want to hear Q speak about this because you talked about one of the first things that you did was the shopping. And I know that something stuck out to Q on that shopping excursion. So I want you to share that, because this is a part of what this is about too. This is about a conversation about a brighter way, not about the organization. How do you make a brighter way? And so all these relationships have a tendency to do something because you bring yourself to every event. And the best stigma reduction is living the lives that we do. So I want Q to relay the event that stuck out to him during that first shopping excursion.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I'd like to hear it from a different perspective.
And
Okay.
before Q starts, I also want to know, so that's the first question for Q. And then to Jordan, I want to know about going shopping and how that was like for you. All those choices
right.
that you're like, what is going on right now? So I would like to know after Q.
Okay, so during our conversation and just learning each other, he let me know that, man, I ain't got no clothes. I know for myself, I was going through that too. And being big fellas, it is hard to shop for us, especially when we're not trying to follow the trend of the skinny jeans and everything tight. We just can't do it. It's uncomfortable, okay? Okay, that wasn't for you to laugh either, though.
Especially not so whole-throatedly. That was quite the laugh.
But during our conversation, he let me know that, he doesn't have any clothes. So our instinct was like, okay. He told me the amount of money that he was working with, and I said, okay, we can get something done with that. Let me start thinking about where did I go and how did I maximize the amount of money that I was working with and getting some items of clothes that was affordable and still fashionable and trendy, if you will. So I picked a location and we went. So we was picking out stuff, and then we ended up, he wanted to get some shoes. And I'm like, only place that I know about shoes is, you go to the mall or whatever. So we go in the mall, we go in this one particular store, and we're looking at the shoes. He picked up a couple shoes, and I'm sitting down now because, I'm kind of tired, I'm fat. So I sit down and I'm, just watching people. And I notice that he's engaged in a conversation with this young boy. So now I'm tuned in, I'm trying to see what he's talking to this young boy about. So I overhear him say, hey man, you really like these shoes? I was thinking about getting them shoes too. He was like, yeah, I really like them. And then the grandmother comes up and the young boy says, Granny, I want these particular shoes. So she ended up, shooting him down and saying that she wasn't going to get them. And it came off as if she couldn't afford them because she says, I'm not going to buy these expensive shoes for your first day. So in my mind, I'm like, dang, she just killed his little dream, right? But right when I was thinking it, I didn't react. Jordan did. Jordan immediately says, ma'am, I will split it with you. I'll pay half of it. And I was like, what? You only got a small amount of money to work with. We're in here to get you some shoes. And from my understanding of him and his financial situation at the time, it was limited. So you can't afford to do that?
Yeah, that was definitely on a McDonald's paycheck.
And then I was like, awesome.
Would that make them mix shoes?
That would make them mix shoes. Yeah.
Can you say that again? Awesome. That's what Q thought.
I think that's the right word for it. It was awesome. I was in awe when I was seeing it. And so now I'm all the way tuned in now, right? I'm trying to see what the lady is going to say. I just know she was going to say, yeah, or take it, whatever, right? On the contrary, she says, you don't have to do that. So I'm like, oh man, she's offended. Or, it's about to be some type of issue or whatever, right? Jordan respectfully says, no, ma'am, it's important that he has these shoes for the first day. He is a big guy. This is a very important thing. You remember your first day of school. You want to be as fly as you possibly can. And one of the things is us boys and little kids do, we pride our gym shoes. So he understood that. So again, he offered again and was explaining to her, no, it's okay. I want to do this. I will, split it with you. She replied again, no, you don't have to do that. But now I see her face and the energy that came from her. She was shocked. She was shocked and she was impressed and she was in awe herself. Wow, she says, I can't believe you would do that. And eventually she still said, no, I can't take that. We're well off. I have to get permission from his mother. And, basically, she didn't take it. So as we walking out, as she walks away to the other side of the department store, he comes to me and I say, dawg, you the man for that. You the man for that. I said, man, I love that. And he doesn't know this, but there was a couple tears coming from my eyes because I understood the moment. That moment was just awesome.
Right.
And I wish I'd have had my phone out to record it at the time. I was telling this to Adam, but I said, you know what? No. Let me go ahead and just experienced this. So as we about to leave the department store, and I later find this out, he doubles back to the lady. I don't know what they're saying, they're too far away. But after we get back, he explains to me what happened. So I'm not going to take that part because I wasn't there. So I'm going to allow him to explain that part. But again.
And from there, after you explain that part of it, then you can go to what she said about the idea of what was your experience of the shopping.
So I think it's important to clarify a couple points on the story is that she didn't not have enough money. She was only limiting to him a certain value of shoe. And secondly, over the course of the conversation, I was looking at the shoes he was trying to get. And a big part of that is he goes to a private school and they have a uniform. So it was only certain shoes that he could get. And I was helping him choose shoes that would best suit the uniform that he had. The shoe that he had chosen was, a little expensive, and she had put him at like a $50 limit. So I was like, putting up $70 isn't that big a deal. The later conversation really wasn't a conversation so much as she waved me over and she was kind of like in a situation like she didn't want me to be offended that she didn't take the money, and she had explained that they were well off and the situation and whatever, and asked me why I was willing to do it. Well, this young man, he's going to grow up to be a bull of a man. He's going to be a big guy. And whenever I see kids like that, I always like to try to pull them aside and talk to them and say, hey, listen, people are going to be afraid of you. You need to learn how to be that example, that Ferdinand the Bull, the gentle giant, so that people don't automatically have this linear thinking of big guy, black guy, scary guy. We know back, 60s, 70s, 80s, the old stigma, she'll grab her purse and cross the street, or they'll lock their doors to, get away from you. It's not that day and age anymore, but there's still those stigmas that in a dark street, in a back way, if you need help, you're not going to call the big black guy. You know what I mean? But then it's not unjustified, but it's just unfortunate. So I do my best to try and teach young big men to grow up to be gentlemen, right? Now, you had asked me about the experience of shopping in and of itself. It's a different monster. I myself am 6'2", 320 pounds, and built like a lion. So finding clothes that fit me is extremely difficult. And everything fashion-wise is skinny jeans, short, tight, and nothing fits appropriately. And then the other side of it is we walked through the mall and it was like a ghost town. He was like, let's go to the mall. I go through, I'm like, man, shouldn't there be kids here? Shouldn't there be people here? And come to find out, like, everything is done online shopping, Amazon and all, and even Walmart, you can put your order in, come in, pick it up. So going through an actual brick and mortar establishment seems almost like foreign, and I think that was the biggest thing getting used to. And then even when going to cash out, so when I had first got out, I got a job at McDonald's, and one of the kids there, 15-year-old kid or whatever, we had to go do a run, and we went to Kroger's to go do it on our lunch break. And when I got there, he had to show me how to do a self-checkout register. That's how long I've been away, is that when I left, there were no self-checkout. So I'm like, where are the people at? There's literally no one here. There's one person at the door waiting to see your receipt. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do? So, and then even at the stores, like, you go to stores and restaurants and whatnot, and you go to the table, no one brings you a menu. You got to bring your phone out and take a snapshot of it, and they can tell you what you got on your phone. So it's definitely been a weird acclimation to getting accustomed to the service industry with no servers. Restaurants, stores, the mall, any of that. Yeah, that's been a big part of this transition.
Did you, Q and I have talked about this quite a bit, but did the degree of choices and the menu of things that are available to you, was that kind of a difficult thing to deal with? I still have a tendency, 2.5 years later sometimes, when somebody's ordering, to be like, that sounds good, I'll take that, because it all sounds good to me, and it's almost easier than that. Sometimes I look at the menu and it's like paralysis by analysis. There's so much, and it's like, I'll just go with what you're going with.
Yeah, whatever you get.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So especially when you, like, a lot of these places, a lot of these establishments didn't even exist. So if I'm going to a restaurant that I've never even been to before, and I'm like, hey, like, and then, well, maybe, there's just a lot of indecision there. Part of it is the overwhelming information, and then the other part of it is that my experience with stuff has been so limited that I'm kind of accustomed to a small, it's like, hey, like, that's a little bit extravagant. Like, that's not extravagant. Like, no, it just seems extravagant. Like, I don't want all that to deal with, food-wise, especially like you go to a restaurant, you're limited palate, or you're limited, what you have access to that you make meals out of, and all of a sudden it's just, the only word I can really think is overwhelming. But yeah, I've been done dealing with that.
It's interesting you use the words extravagant too, because I think sometimes different people respond to that different ways, but I think we all have some measure of it. Like, especially when we're still getting back on our feet, like, we somehow shouldn't do that because that's more extravagant. We should be doing something a little bit more basic.
That costs too much.
Right.
I don't need all that.
Well, for me, it's not so much the price. To me, it's, like I said, the what it is you're ordering. Like, you get a meal and you're looking at it, it's like, man, that's a lot going on that plate. There's just a whole lot there, and it just seems extravagant. Like, that's the only thing I can think of extravagant. Like, fancy. You're like, oh man, that's a nice meal there. And somebody's looking, it's like, bro, That's a step up from McDonald's. You're at Applebee's. Stop playing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Don't look at the microwaves in the bag. You know? And I think sometimes like these kind of conversations, these are the kind of conversations that you have when we start talking about mentoring, when we start talking about navigating. That's all it is. It's two people chopping it up. It's somebody who might have been down this path before talking to somebody who is going down this path. It's not a matter of anything other than leadership in the basic sense. The basic sense is I've been here.
Well, I got a big one for you then. So the most recent form of technology I had while I was incarcerated was a typewriter, not even a word processor, a typewriter. And then you get out and they're like, well, here's a phone. Like, you want me to do what is this? This is like a TV. Like, I don't know, what am I doing? So I had first got released and they had me on tethered monitoring. So I'm thinking that I'm just gonna have an ankle monitor. No, my ankle monitor was not my tether. It was my cell phone. They provided me with a cell phone with full service. And the way it worked is your ankle monitor synced or Bluetooth to your cell phone. Your cell phone and you could not be more than 10 feet apart. And your cell phone was what was the monitoring. It recorded where you went, how long you were there, how many times you frequented it, the route you took to get there. It was pretty in depth. And I mean, it's important to note that I was on federal release. But yeah, it was, they FaceTime, photos, text. Like, man, I don't know how to use half this stuff. And you're cussing me out because you're like, answer your FaceTime. I'm like, do what? Like, what is the FaceTime?
Right.
The last thing my phone did when I came was the chirp, the brr, brr.
LaWanda shared a part of her story with that too, that she literally went out and bought a second phone because they told her to Zoom, and then it was on her phone, and she looked and it wasn't. So she went and bought another phone, not knowing it was an app. And there's an assumption with that. It's like talking to a 12-year-old. 12-year-old has never lived in a time where they didn't have a smartphone. Smartphones have always existed. Right. So they look at you like you're from another planet. And a lot of other people have a tendency to kind of do that too, which is another reason why relationships are so important, and people forget about that because they forget where they learned those things. Even if it was always there, somebody taught you to begin with. Somebody taught you what it meant to swipe this way. Somebody taught you. Right. I tell this all the time. The first time I got on a computer, I didn't know what double clicking was. I'm sitting there clicking, trying to figure out why the damn envelope won't open up on the screen. And I'm too proud to ask the guy.
Yep.
So I sat there for 5 minutes trying to do that, and he could see the look of confusion on my face, and he's
frustration.
Like, yeah, what's the issue? And so having somebody who can kind of maybe possibly anticipate those things, or at least can recognize those things for the same thing. I mean, I went into 93 and came home in 2020. Man, it was the brick. People were still carrying, and that was somebody who was balling if they had the brick. Because anybody else who had it had that thing that you plug into your lighter and it looked like a lunch bag.
Yeah, the carry-on.
Exactly. So this is one of the things that's important. I want to go back to the idea of what you were talking about, Q, when you witnessed that with Jordan. And I want to use another example, because Jordan talked about going to events and surrounding yourself with the right people. And I want to point out the fact that going to the events and being the right people is just as important.
Nice.
And it makes the mentor-mentee relationship unique and reciprocal in a way that people don't even understand. So I'm going to set the table because this is important, because Q has filled me in on some of these things, and he's actually been inspired by him too. I think that fixing that gentleman's watch and getting a battery came from Jordan.
Ain't no doubt.
And one of the
what did you do now?
I have to share the story.
Yeah, well, I'll let him share
this for the first time now.
Yeah, exactly. And you inspired it, but also he's quick to share these things because they're extremely important. So I'm going to set the table for the next act of kindness that this gentle giant was dishing out, and they're over there working with Fed Up Ministries, who comes every Wednesday to the bus station in Ypsi, and they distribute meals to anybody who wants them. And I'm not just talking about meals. I'm talking about they hook some stuff up. This is stuff.
It's good.
That's extravagant.
Yeah.
That's what that is. And so they're over there and they're helping and they're making sure that people know that we exist and the service is available. And Jordan notices this guy's tire's flat. So I'm going to pass it over to Jordan to explain from there what happened after he saw this gentleman with a flat tire.
But before we continue, make sure somebody reminds me, my supervisor would like to donate to Fed Up Ministry. So remind me about that, because Q seemed to slip the ball on that a couple times.
Hey.
Yeah, we're going to put that out there. So when I see somebody who is in need and not want, and it's important to know the difference between a want and a need when you see somebody, because you'll pass people on the street all the time with a hand out and their cup out, and it's like, hey, you're not actually being proactive, so I'm not gonna, enable you, but I'm willing to assist. So this guy, he's pushing his bike and he's coming to get the food. Well, at some point that day, his bike had to be functional because he had it. I don't see anybody just pushing around up a no good bike. So having seen that, I asked him, like, hey, how far you got to get to? Where you going? He's like, oh man, I'm going down the block, whatever. So I'm like, you staying a while? You gonna eat? He's like, yeah, I'm staying. I'm gonna eat. Well, Ace Hardware is literally Kenny Quarter from the bus depot in downtown. So while he was getting his food, I ran over to. I actually called first and had them make sure they had the inner tube in place. He had it at the desk for me. I went over, paid for it. Inner tube, like $6, $5 and some change plus tax, whatever. Go get the inner tube. Got my truck. Pulled my truck over around to the bus station. And what was it? Me and Rick.
Yep.
Me and Rick. Yeah, we just changed the tire out and and I just had a little rinky-dink roadside air compressor in my truck. We filled it up and sent him on his way. And you could tell he was tickled pink, man. He was just that was just the best part of his day right there because
that guy's face.
Yeah,
Right.
Oh my God.
Will you explain it, Q?
Okay, so once again, I'm over there doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm giving back to the community, being supportive of Fed Up Ministries. And I just look over and I see Jordan and Rick got this bicycle upside down and this older, tall gentleman is standing there and they fix it on the top in the middle of the bus depot, right? And I'm looking
we was definitely holding up traffic.
And I'm looking like, what is going on here? So, of course, I walk over there and see what's going on, and that's what happened. The guy had a flat tire. So I was watching it, but I'm watching him because I wanted to see his reaction. And it was, how can I describe it? It was, his face was just glowing, right? It was just glowing. He had a smile that was like, you ever seen, I don't know if y'all got kids, but y'all can just imagine, kids when they first wake up on Christmas and they see all the prizes, the gifts, but they haven't opened them yet, but they see it. That very first moment of them walking in that room and see all the gifts, that was the face. And I was like, oh, I gotta film this. This time I was filming this. So I asked the gentleman, I say, excuse me, sir, do you mind if I interview you right now? And he said, yeah, go ahead. And I say, sir, that was the first question I asked him. How do you feel? He said, man, I feel wonderful. Guys don't do this. And I'm like, you're right. But we do. And he was trying to help. He wasn't really paying attention to my question, and he was just trying to help. So I was trying to ask more questions, but he wasn't paying me no mind. He wanted to make sure that, the bike was okay, and he was showing them his gratitude.
And let me set the table too, because this is an audio, so you can't see this. So Jordan described himself. He's 6'2", weighs 320. You got 3 guys who are formerly incarcerated. You got 60 years of incarceration. Seeing a need for a gentleman on the street and fulfilling it. This is not what people think of when they have this typical stigmatized way of looking at the world. And this is the kind of work that guys are doing out there on a regular basis. And I say work because it works on people, not because they find it to be any heavy lift. I didn't say a job. A job is a piece of work. You can put work in all day long. I put work in every day.
Right.
And it's not something that's cumbersome or burdensome. These guys are doing it because it's on their heart.
Right.
They're not doing it for any other reason. So, which also leads to what inspired you to do the next act, which Jordan hasn't heard of yet. So let him know the multiplier effect of when you do something like this.
Before you get into that, I want to bring a couple things up real quick, because one, my belief in doing something for somebody, that's like Q, well, obviously, like you get the thought from it, is that I've never actually said, hey, Q, watch this, or hey, I'm about to go do this real quick.
No.
So I always do stuff like that, but I've always been taught, and for those of you who recognize the saying, it applies in that form, is that give so secretly that your left hand does not know what your right hand is doing.
No doubt.
Right? So it always makes me feel uncomfortable when somebody brings it up, like, hey, why'd you do that? And I'm like, I don't know. I act, I do, and then there it goes. So for those of you who are familiar with love languages, my love language is acts of service. So when I do that, it's for me, it's fulfilling as well as being fulfilled for doing it for somebody else.
It's an act of love.
Right. So there, I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, because I put him on blast too. When I was recording the older gentleman, after the gentleman rolled off the bike, he tested his bike, and he had that smile while he was trying to maneuver around the parking lot. I asked him too. I said, man, why you do that? And I caught him off guard. And it was the most genuine answer the guy needed an inner tube. It was just like that. And I was like, I'm trying to record, right? And I'm like, man, you gotta give me a little bit more than that. but it was perfect because
That
it
was
was
it.
it was
I saw
a
a
need.
need,
I saw
right.
a need and I did it. So ever since that day at the mall, it stuck with me. I've been trying to find opportunities to just be of a service, right? Organically, though. I'm not just going out just trying to be Captain Saver.
With your TikTok out, like, hey, all right, let's go do this one.
Right. So I believe this was 2 weeks ago, and we're standing outside of our office, just getting some fresh air, and a older white gentleman, very up in his age, is walking past. His head is down, and he's, he looks like he's kind of in distress. So we speak to everyone that walks past. It's just something that we do. Hey, how you doing? Good morning, good afternoon. Have a nice day, whatever, right? And so we, being normal, me and Rick, we say, hey, how you doing, sir? And, most people, they just say, hey, I'm all right, hey, whatever, right? No, we're not expecting that this gentleman to say, I'm not doing so well. So when he said it, it kind of took us by surprise. So we both said it simultaneously, well, then what's wrong? And he said, well, I've been trying to find this jewelry store because I need my watch. I'm trying to get my watch fixed. So on the corner of our office, there's a makeshift jewelry store, and it was closed. So the guy was upset about that. So I said, well, let me see the watch. Let me see what type of watch it is. So the gentleman, he didn't hesitate. He came over. He said, yeah, I had this watch in my family for a long time. It means something to me. I hate to buy another one. And I said, well, let me see it. I said, well, what is it doing? He said, well, sometimes it stops, sometimes it'll go. And I said, well, is it the pin? Sometimes the pin, you don't push the pin in all the way. Because it's an older gentleman. I'm thinking that he might be forgetful or not paying attention or paying close attention to certain details, because he's up in age. So I'm giving him certain things, and I'm also troubleshooting, but I'm giving him certain things to try to remember. So as I'm showing him, I'm troubleshooting as I'm showing him, none of the things that I can remember that usually go wrong with watches were working. And I said, well, how long is your battery? How long have you had the battery? Oh, I had it over 10 years. I said, really? I said, sir, I believe that's a battery issue. So I remembered that I was helping my mother out, and I had purchased some batteries, and I had some extra batteries, not knowing, couldn't remember what size of battery. So I go to my car, and I come back, and unfortunately, it's the wrong battery, right? So I pop the watch off, the back of the watch off, and I see that it's a different size battery. And I said, sir, there's a hardware store right across the street. The same hardware store that Mr. Jordan ended up going to, right?
Ace Hardware Store loves us.
Yeah. We should get a sponsorship for that one.
Yep.
So we all walked over there, and we started looking for the battery, and I fixed the battery right there in Ace Hardware, right there on the counter. And the gentleman says, how much do I owe you? I have to pay you something. And I said, sir, no, I don't want anything. And then I thought about it. I said, no, you know what, sir? If you could do this for me. I said, the next time you hear a conversation or you're in the conversation and it turns to formerly incarcerated or people who have made mistakes in their lives, can you interject and say that not all of us are bad, that we all deserve a second chance? All we need is that chance, and that we're all human beings? He said, I sure will.
Watch, 6 months from now, we're going to find out he's a senator or something.
Maybe.
Cool.
Yeah. And then, after we go across, he ended up sharing with us that his son was previously incarcerated. So we started building a relationship with that gentleman right there on the spot.
Connections.
And it felt so good.
Right.
But I accredit it to Jordan, though.
And so
Jordan, you were his inspiration.
Yes. But I have to say this, though. In the mentor aspect of our organization, I want people to actually understand what that means. Yes, I might be part of this organization, and we have resources to assist individuals, right? And we might share our stories, but every person that comes in to our office, I tell them this. Yes, we have a wraparound service. Yes, this is our cornerstone is mentorship, but you are my mentor. This is a reciprocal thing. And I just proved that in the story because I learned from this guy almost every day that we're together, whether it's just something that he went through and I knew and I learned something to avoid, or the way he thinks and how he cares about certain things inspires me. So I just want people to know it's not the I'm over you. Oh, I know more than you. No, it's far more than that. It is a relationship.
And I'd like to point out that it has never felt like that. It has never felt like anytime I've been there that it's been like little I, big U's type situations. Like anytime I come in, it's always a jovial atmosphere. You're greeted by name. You know, it's not like it's this big network of the people. And it's like, all right, well, hey, you're next. And it's like, can you come in? It's not a social work office. It's, you know, it's very informal, but at the same time, it's purposeful. And Q is my direct mentor. But there's no doubt in my mind that if I needed to go to Adam or Rick or, you know, Janine, any of them, I could go into the shop and say, hey, listen, I'm in a situation, Q's not available. And it would get done.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that, like, a lot of times when I first started, people knew of A Brighter Way, and they kind of knew a little bit of what we did. But the idea of reentry through relationship just made sense. And it's relationship, not relationships. If you look at it and there's not an S on it, it's purposeful.
Right.
Because it's one relationship at a time.
Yes.
And those relationships are reciprocal. The things work in alternating currents. You know, if you think about this electrically, this is not a direct current like you're talking about these other systems. And it's like, I'm giving something to you. You know, it's like, no, this is alternating current so that we can create this kind of synergy that we couldn't have thought about. How the guy with the watch may have never got a battery in it that day. He may have lost something that he genuinely appreciated, or he may have got, you know, taken for $75 by the people at the jewelry store just because it was a battery. And this started because you had a conversation with a kid in a shoe store. This is the thing that we have to remember is that whether we're on a stage or not, it's different when you go out and do those things to make a TikTok,
right,
as opposed to you going out and TikTok comes to you. Life comes to you. Right. People joke about it all the time. We all got a video recorder in our pocket and stuff. I'm the worst person in the world to send out and try and get pictures of an event because I forget, because I'm too busy living it.
Yeah.
I'm too busy enjoying it to remember that I actually need to be able to take pictures of this sometimes. But even if you don't take pictures, he immediately shared the story.
Right. No, it definitely, it'll travel word of mouth. But there's also, so I kind of live my life by 4 different sayings, or for like parables, I guess they are. The one that's most relevant to this particular story is, and there's different variations of it, whether you play it as the old man or the young kid, but there's an old man, he's walking down the beach and the low tide is out and he's throwing starfish into the ocean, right? And the kid's watching him. The next day he comes out, he's doing the same thing. The next day, so the kid comes up to him and he says, hey, what are you doing? He's like, I'm throwing starfish back in the ocean. He's like, why? Every day they're gonna end up here and then you're barely not gonna make it all this miles of beach. So what does it matter? You're not making a difference. And he picks up one, throws it in the ocean and says, I made a difference to that one. Mm-hmm. So when you kind of think of it like that, it's like, man, like you can make a difference one at a time if you take it forward. You know what I mean? But you can't let the influence of negative people dictate that what your performance is going to be. Yes, so even if you do something for somebody that's ungrateful, you didn't do it for them. You didn't come to them and say, hey, do you need something? You're saying, hey, can I do something for you? Mm-hmm. You know. And then the other saying that was introduced to me was, there was a gentleman when I was incarcerated. He diabetic. He had no feet, no legs. One was cut off about mid-shin and the other was a little below the knee. And whenever I was having a bad day, he would always call out to me. He'd say, nice shoes. And that's relevant because he had explained to me one time, he says, there used to be a man who had I used to complain that I had no shoes until I met a man with no feet. And he's always reminding me, like, it could be worse. At least you can get up and move around of your own accord. At least you can see. At least you have your help.
Perspective taking.
Yeah, exactly. So when he would always holler at me, he'd see me with my head down. He'd be like, man, you looking at your shoes? I'd be like, yeah, I guess I am, aren't I? He said, all right, well, go ahead and do what you need to do and get it done. And it would always bump me up a little bit, you know what I mean? Because it's not that bad. Whatever it is going to be over tomorrow, and I will get up and move forward. So those are the two that kind of like guide me in my decisions and whatnot.
And those are examples of right relationship, because we talk about that, you know, in the wholeness ethics, the idea that the only choice we have in these situations, we don't have a choice on how somebody else relates to us.
Right.
We don't have a choice on how somebody else views us. All we do is have a choice as to what kind of relationship we are going to have with that individual, we are going to have with ourselves.
Right.
So when we become, you know, kind of comfortable in who we are, in our skin, and our ability to change and adapt, and I don't mean this new age version of everybody has their own truth, small t type of stuff. And I'm not talking about the small r version of relationship, you know, where somebody talks about somebody one way when they're in the room and talks, you know, another way about them when they're out of the room. I think I saw something, and I'm going to butcher this because I haven't internalized it enough, but I saw something on Facebook the other day that said true friends are the ones that basically talk smack to you to your face and then say good things about you behind your back.
Right.
You know? So this idea of right relationship, that's exactly what you're talking about, is we decide how we interact in the world. We don't decide on how it's going to land with other people. That's where we have, what some would describe as the moral high ground. And we don't do it for the publicity, but I think it's important
that people see it
and hear it, because these things that take place in the dark, many people will act like they never happened. And I think it's hugely important. Again, I'm going to put this out here because it's important, and I got this from the recovery community, but I think it's important because it draws people's attention. We're sitting here in this room right now with 65, 70 years of incarceration.
Yeah.
And we're all doing good things on a daily basis, on a micro level and on a macro level.
Yes, sir.
And the world will act like what we did previously is more important than what we did today, which is nonsense.
It is.
Which is nonsense, because how many of them want to be judged by their third grade report card? Because essentially that's what we're talking about. I'm 52 years old, and if you're going to keep judging me for what I did when I was 22, we don't want to dig too deep into your closet.
Right.
The whole thing about this is stigma reduction only takes place through relationship. And there are going to be huge campaigns and there are going to be small campaigns. Robin got the idea for doing this from listening to Ear Hustle.
Okay.
It gave her another...
She was ear hustling.
Exactly. She got another perspective of things, and then she came to us, and she inspired this. All of these things happen from a single relationship that leads to another level of understanding if we allow ourselves to be open to do so.
Well, that brings up a very interesting kind of thought. So integrity. Integrity is not doing the right thing. It's doing the right thing when you don't think anybody's watching. And you'll never know when somebody, right. So you never know when somebody's going to see you and, and have a connection to you. So 2 different examples that I can show. Recently, I've been donating plasma, right? The lady at the plasma center, I don't know her from Adam, right? My mother comes up there and she's, oh my God, Lisa. And I'm like, you know my mom? She's like, that's your mom? And I'm like, ooh, I'm glad I didn't do nothing stupid today. You know what I mean? Like, that's your mom, And then another one is my friend, his wife is having a birthday party tomorrow, as a matter of fact, and we're going to do a bonfire. So we went out and, into the school, got permission, and they said anything that's down, you can get it. So I'm hauling literally logs out of this wood. My boss drives past me, right, on the road. I don't know it's him. I don't recognize his vehicle. Stops. I said, oh, man, here goes some Karen. I'm about to get cussed out, you know what I mean? And then he pulls up, and then rolls down his window. He's like, hey, what you doing? I'm like, oh, man. Yeah, I explained it to him, whatever. He went about his business. But had I been doing something I had no business doing, in either event, I'd have got caught by a mom's friend or my boss. And I tell you, like, I was in the middle of nowhere when my boss pulled up, like in the woods. So, like, you never know when the point I'm trying to make is you never know when somebody's going to watch you and when your actions are going to influence their opinion.
Yes,
good, bad, or indifferent. It kind of illustrates, like I didn't know anything. Q had thought about that. Like, I thought it was just something that had happened and we moved forward. I didn't know it was impactful. I didn't know that it was something that he was going to start instituting in his daily practice.
Yeah, we had a conversation that was actually relative to that too, the integrity. And we had our Returning Citizens Resource Fair. Mm-hmm. And there were different people from all over. There were people from healthcare. There were employers. There were people from the Department of Corrections, people from Offender Success Housing. And Q got kind of cornered and questioned a little bit. And it made him a little bit nervous in the situation because of the power dynamics that were going on. So he came to me, and you could tell that he was kind of wearing this kind of heavy. And he was like, well, I didn't know what to do. And I said something similar to what you said. I said, always tell the truth. And if somebody else has got a problem with it, we can always stand on the truth. We can always defend that. Right. If somebody else has got a problem with it, that's their issue, because that's what we stand on.
Yes, sir.
We stand on that. Word is bond. We don't play that just play on word stuff. Mm-hmm. My feet have to match my mouth.
Right.
Because if I'm going to sit here, one of the reasons why I do these things and one of the reasons I show up to these things and why I speak to these things is because that's my level of accountability. Because if I'm talking about it, I better be about it. And if I'm on some bull, somebody's going to tell me, because they'll be like, oh, you were out there talking a good game.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. So, to quote Martin Luther King Jr., you will not remember the words of your enemy, but you will remember the silence of your friends. So, like you're saying, like the people around you, they're going to definitely comment on it. Like if you're doing wrong, if you're doing something,
they can't wait to say something.
You're gonna hear it. You're gonna hear it loud and clear. Yeah. But when you do right, no one's gonna bring it up. No one's gonna say, "Oh, did you hear? Did you see?" But no, let slip up. Do something wrong.
Yeah. It draws our attention. And I think that's the other thing that our mentoring program does, that does point out that you're doing well.
Yeah.
It's important to remind people of that. I don't care how much you squirm. I don't care how much you squirm. I'm watching you squirm in the chair right now half the time when we talk about how certain things affected you, because we're not really used to being given that praise. And sometimes we still have a feeling like somebody's trying to rock us to sleep or something like that. Even if that's not the case, those old things don't die right away. But it's extremely important. It's extremely important to tell people that we love them and that they're doing well when we have the opportunity to. You know, I mean, I've learned that a lot, and I tell my friends a lot too. We tell each other, that's my boy. I love him.
You know, I just brought that up the other day. What was it, last Saturday? Where were we at with Jessica and them?
Oh, right. Yep. At the training event in Jackson.
Who was that with?
Nation Outside.
Nation Outside. Shout out to Nation Outside.
So we were out there doing a thing with Nation Outside, and the woman has a theater background. So she was like, all right, so we're not going to really say anything. We're going to come up here, and she says, stop now, make a pose. Tell me how you feel. And it's like, man, like that's, you know, a majority of your communication is nonverbal. So when you say, hey, take this thought, turn it into a nonverbal pose, and then present it to me so that I can interpret it. Like, wait a minute, I'm really giving you a lot more than I want to. So talk about making somebody uncomfortable. Now you've given that pose. And I'm thinking, all right, that's cool, that's it. Now she says, hey, sit down and write and explain what that pose was. So now you have the nonverbal cue of a thought, and then you have a narration of why that was and what was going on. And that was like a really uncomfortable, that was a really vulnerable feeling, you know, to say, hey, now explain why you felt that way. Show me how you feel. Now tell me why that is what you showed. Not tell me how you feel, but tell me why you showed me that. And it's like, well, that's a different concept. Like our words, we've learned due to society and how you interact with people and what's socially acceptable and whatnot. We've learned what you can and can't get away with speaking to somebody. But we very rarely know how to guard our body language because it's instinctual. You know what I mean? You react to something. You can't say, oh, I wasn't scared. Man, you're sweating, your pupils dilated, your heart rate's up. I can see the vein in your forehead pumping. That was fear, you know?
You can call it what you want. We know what it was.
So when she did that, they asked me afterward, I was like, man, that just made me feel vulnerable. She was like, that's a serious word to use. Why'd you choose that word? Because I was vulnerable. Like, I know what words mean. That's how I felt.
Words have the power to save, create, and destroy.
And before Robin asked the last question, I want to put one thing out there.
Robin, better put us out.
And this is extremely important because this is part of what the mentoring relationship is about too, and why it's reciprocal is because it's a leadership position, and we have to lead from a point of vulnerability. We have to be able to share. We have to be willing to be put into a situation where it can go sideways and we can be hurt. And that's one of the responsibilities that often starts with the mentor, so that the other person realizes it's okay.
Right. Okay. So if you open up to me, now it's like, well, now I don't have to feel bad about opening back up because you're not going to make fun of me.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. And that's important. Go ahead, Robin. I know you're over there. I know you love this question.
Well, this one's a different one.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Curveball.
So this actually speaks to those that have a hard time asking for help. So what advice would you give someone that they kind of know that they might need something, but just don't know how to ask for help?
Oh, I got this.
Swallow your pride is one of them for me, which is hard to do.
How do they know it's their pride that's stopping them?
Well, first they have to identify and be able to put the word to it.
Exactly.
But it's the emotion that they actually are experiencing at that time. Pride is just the name for it, but it's the anxiety, it's the not wanting to show that you can't do it, and it's also what's been embedded in us from being groomed as male. So that's a whole different story, but yeah, there's a stigma within that.
So I think it's the other side of the coin. I think it's fear, right? There are proud people, but proud people are few and far between. People who are afraid, specifically of rejection, are the majority. So to quote my namesake, you miss 1,000% of the shots that you do not take, right? If you don't take an opportunity, you're not going to get anywhere. So when you say like people that ask for help, they get that fear. They're like, well, what if they tell me no? All right, they told you no. Statistically, you can ask 100 people the same question, a yes or no question, and you're going to get at least one person to tell you the answer you want to hear. I mean, it's just statistics. You can ask 100 people, will you give me $1? Out of 100 people, you're going to get at least $1. You know what I mean? So now it's just about a numbers game. If you need $1,000, that means you need to ask 1 million people.
I like that.
Just don't let the first person who tells you no, hey, will you help me get to work? No. Hey, will you help me get to work? No. We'll alter the program. Hey, first person, will you give me 35 cents to get on the bus? Yeah, I'm willing to do that. All right, well, now I'm getting there. So if you don't get the results you want from the question you asked, change the question to get to get the same result.
I agree. Fear, but I also know that individuals, because of that fear, dare not to ask. They don't want to reveal or show that they're vulnerable.
To quote a friend of mine, and I don't know if it's hers, so I won't actually put it out there, but F it, do it scared.
Do it scared.
Do it scared. If you wait to not be afraid of a situation, then you'll probably never do it, because these new things are frightening. Mm-hmm. And I will say one more thing on top of that, and that is the proof is you are a survivor. You are here. You have survived every single thing that has ever come across your plate. You are divinely designed to do this. So you are going to survive the next thing too. So do it scared.
And can I say, fuck it, do it scared?
There it is.
I guess you can, because you just did.
Right, you did it already.
And it sounds so much nicer when you say it.
No, it didn't.
It does. Yeah, it does. No. Fuck it. It sounds a little bit different when I say it.
All right, it does.
All right.
Well, thank you guys. This has been such an uplifting experience. Thank you. And Jordan, you are changing the world.
One person at a time.
Exactly.
One flat tire at a time. Thank you, everybody.
All right, thanks.
Thank you for listening to Conversations About a Brighter Way, Reentry Through Relationship, and spending some time getting to know a little bit about other humans.
We'd like to thank some people that helped to make Conversations About a Brighter Way possible. We'd like to thank our volunteer podcast editor, Patrick Domingo. You heard him in season 1 as well. Patrick is a multidisciplined artist based in Arizona. For contact information and to view their work, visit their website, patrickdomingojr.com. The beautiful music you hear in the intro and thank yous was written and performed by Chelsea-based singer-songwriter Annie Capps. If you're looking for a rootsy vibe, a touch of twang, and a soulful groove, look no further. You can find her at anniecaps.com. We'd like to thank Grove Studios for the discount for our podcast, our individual donors, United Way of Washtenaw County, the Ann Arbor Thrift, Nation Outside, Ann Arbor Area Community Foundation, our volunteers, mentors, and mentees. The contact information for A Brighter Way is info@abrighterway.org and 734-896-3770.
Oh, and wait. Subscribe and follow us on social media so you don't miss out on a single episode. And visit the website abrighterway.org for donation opportunities. And if you want to reach out to ask questions or send comments, you can email volunteering@abrighterway.org. This is Robin.
And this is Adam.
Peace out.